Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Stress Test, the heartbeat of a healthy leader. Today, we wanted to take some time and share with you a little bit about the reason we began this podcast in the first place.
So, as you know, Stress Test is all about becoming a healthier leader. And a couple years ago, we had another one of those pivotal catalytic moments in life that challenged our norm. We've had multiples of those. We've had them around marriage and grief and, many things. But this one was about work and about our stress at work. And it made us realize how much stress affected our normal lives and that we needed a whole transformational shift in the way that we did and approached everything.
Yeah, so we just went on a journey. The last 2 years has been an amazing journey, and we've started to take you this past year through some of that learning process by inviting great leaders each and every episode to just tell us how they manage their stress, how they manage their ministry, how they manage their business in a way that it doesn't kill them. Hey, we know that stress is called the silent killer for a reason, right?
Yeah. So I have several statistics, but we can send you this. Just pastors, 70% report constantly fighting depression. In terms of since COVID, over a third of the country is going to have a diagnosed anxiety disorder at some point in their adult life. The same it's slightly higher for teenagers and children. They're not to 40%, but it's the high 30s.
And these stats are just pastors, you're saying?
Well, that's
70%.
That's everybody, regular people, but pastors too.
70% fight depression.
Right.
I know for pastors.
44% don't take a regular day off during the week because ministry never stops. I think that's true in corporate world too. It's very hard to
Absolutely.
Even when you're at home, you end up working.
I was just talking to a business leader last night. They're just talking about managing your family schedule and managing their work schedule, and then they're volunteering at church. It's just a nonstop machine. Yeah.
77% of pastors feel like they do not have a good marriage. That is a very scary statistic. And it's not because they've stopped loving their spouses. They don't have the time to invest in their marriage, and there's so much stress and pressure on the marriage.
And on the whole family, 80% say that they believe that pastoring negatively impacts their whole family.
Affects their kids. Yeah, there's, the stereotype of the pastor's kid who rebels or whatever is not there because pastors' kids are worse than other kids. I think it's a direct reflection of the stress that the family is under. And children, they live in a glass house. They don't know how and where they can be honest about that pressure that's affecting their parents.
And everyone works a lot, but pastors are certainly known for this, but 90% work between 55 and 75 hours a week on top of everything else they do with their families.
And most people in church think they only work on Sundays.
Yeah, it's not just Sundays. Yeah,
we've heard that. Like, what do you do the rest of the week?
Yeah. If you're a pastor out there, you probably heard some good ones.
Yeah, good message on Sunday. What do you do all week long? 80% of spouses feel left out and unappreciated by church. Loneliness is a big issue in ministry. This idea that 70% of pastors and their wives feel like they don't have close friends. So there's more, but what we have discovered since we went on this journey of trying to analyze and pick apart the stress that we had been under and that we had maybe brought on ourselves is that we're not alone. We speak at conferences and we speak to pastors and their wives, and unilaterally we hear the same things of men and women who love their churches, who love their ministry, who love their jobs, love serving people, and yet every day think about quitting, every day feeling like they're going to have to give up, not knowing if they're going to make it emotionally, spiritually in their marriage. And it's not for lack of spirituality. So what is it? And as we've been exploring what stress does to the mind and the body and therefore our workplace, we're not surprised that all of the evidence points to stress management.
And we've been learning a lot from
And
some
what it is.
great
Yeah.
interviews. And hey, so today's not an interview, but we wanted to share some things from our lives and what we're learning. And by the way, Soul Care did an amazing job putting those stats together. We want to get those in your hands, as well as some other resources. So we'll tell you about how we can do that in just a little while. But I can promise you that whether you're in business or you're in ministry, you carry some weight. And you don't even know what that weight's doing to you necessarily. You might have some physical things going on in your life, and you might not even attribute it to that. I was a pretty healthy guy. Well, still healthy, but I was.
He's being modest. He was an Iron Man.
Well, an Ironman.
Iron
I did an
Man.
Ironman. If
What
you've
is
ever
it?
done a triathlon,
I always forget the
there's
numbers.
lots of levels of triathlons.
It's a 112-mile bike. I remember that. That was like 5 hours
Done
of my life
sprints
waiting.
and Olympics and half Ironman and full Ironman. The full Iron distance is 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike, and a marathon, 26.2-mile run. I know that's insane. And I love endurance sports. I love bike racing. I've done probably 100 bike races. But I have...
You like pushing your body to the
I
limits.
do.
And
It's a sickness.
well, it's personality, it's nurturing, it's
Yeah.
right? It's whatever it is. It's all of those things put together, but it carries over into your work life.
Yeah, and it worked out really good because you go, okay, I'm a driven person, so let's
I get a lot done.
Let's
Yeah.
channel this in a right way and in a healthy way. For me, it was exercise. You probably have some healthy thing you're doing or not, but probably your work-life balance, I hate that word, but if you're really finding a way through this, you probably don't realize what's happening inside of you. And so I didn't know that. Everyone knows what happened 3 years ago, in 2020. The world blew up. And so everybody was under stress. But pastors in particular took a lot of stress in trying to manage COVID wars, then turned into racial tension and wars, and then turned into political wars. So you guys know what happened in that implosion. Well, we were walking through all that while I'm doing all my exercises, and 35 miles into a 40-mile training race, my heart, my widowmaker, shut. That's a heart attack. And it's not the good kind of heart attack or where you get some symptoms and you go in the ER and they find out,
catch it early.
man, you need to do a bypass or you need to do something. But this was the kind that should have put me out. And miraculously, I'm still here. In fact, only 1% of people whose widowmaker shut actually live to tell about it. And so
most don't live past the first couple hours. And we didn't have Shane to the ER for 6.5 hours.
No, I drove myself home.
Yeah.
You convinced me.
We had a little argument in the kitchen. I'm like, you're having a heart attack. I'm not having a heart attack. Like, you're having a heart attack. You can't
Not a heart
breathe. He's hanging
attack.
onto the counter,
It's not a
gasping
heart
for
attack.
air. He's like, I'm just out of shape. I can't recover. We won't go into all of that, but eventually he ends up in there, and they were going to send him home because his EKGs were good. Everything looked good. They were pretty convinced it was something else, but while he lay there, a nurse, praise God, a brand new nurse actually,
Yeah, 4 months on the job.
said, I don't like what the EKGs are saying. I think something else is happening, and called a cardiologist. This was late at night by this time, and who looked at the blood work that had come back, and it showed cardio enzymes, and he said, you've had a heart attack. We're going in right now. And we didn't know if he was going to make it. In fact, the doctor was annoyed because you wanted to pray for the ER staff. And he was like thinking, like, if I don't get in there right now, you're not going to make it. Because he knew how long it had been.
I loved his statement. He said, we're like, well, how can this happen? What are you talking about? Like, we've been here for hours. No one said anything about a heart attack. He goes, well, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I can sit here and explain it to you.
or I can save
or
your
I
life.
can save your life.
Yeah. Anyway, so then the whole heart attack recovery process, kind of a lot of shock, and wrapping our heads around this thing, and the close call. They did 2 heart catheterizations, found a 95% blockage, and then right below it a 75% blockage.
In the same widowmaker
And he
artery.
would have, if he had gone home, he would have died during the night. And it was not just frightening, and then of course you're grateful, but it's one of those moments where you're like, okay, something has to change. And it's not the typical, you've got to stop smoking, drinking, being 50 pounds overweight, never exercising. Like, none of those things applied.
Yeah, and the reason why we bring those up is because for most people, and including myself, we're still on a journey of trying to figure out if there's any physical things that point to this or would.
Yeah, it doesn't have a history. So,
But because you don't have a history, because you don't have those physical things, what it did was force us to go on a journey of discovery.
what can we change? And other than changing food, we got to change. We decided we have to change the way you approach. I mean, we knew that he had massive stress and pressure at church, transitioning a church and just helping people who are all in crisis, right? We have to change the way that we approach our work, because obviously he's carrying the stress all the time. And the more that we investigate, and we'll have some, we've got some medical people we're going to have on at some point too, but medicine points to stress. They say 80% of all visits to your regular physician, your general practitioner, 80% of the cases that they see every day are actually stress related, because the body, when it feels stress and it starts that rapid heart rate and it feels chaos, it creates all kinds of diseases. It creates body aches and pains. It creates cancer and stroke and heart attack and all of these things.
So we usually do this little thing when we talk to folks is, hey, maybe take a stress test yourself, and we'll send this to you. But there's some great things that check off here. You might have some things going on in your mind, mentally, cognitive functions, so trouble concentrating, trouble remembering. You might feel very pessimistic. You might have physical things.
Right. This is a great just kind of assessment as to where you might be having stress that you're not thinking about it, because we're really good at saying, well, I'm good, I'm managing it, I just need a vacation, and push off all the warning signs. Our body's constantly giving us warning signs. So to get this stress test, this little assessment, all you have to do is subscribe to the podcast. You can text the word stress to this number.
This is how we get your contact info.
Yeah, 833, we'll tell you again at the end, but 833-204-2158. And in addition to being subscribed to the podcast, we'll send you all the handouts, all the resources that we're going to talk about today. So don't want you to miss out on that. There's a couple more coming. But the first step to finding out how much stress is affecting your mental and physical health is to do an assessment and consider that maybe you're not managing it quite as well as you think you are. We weren't managing it well.
I thought because I was physically healthy, I was good. I thought because I didn't have family history or that I didn't have other signs, that all my cholesterol levels and all my checkups were like, that a boy, great job.
We liked each other.
We thought because we liked each other, it was enough.
We were good kids.
Love will carry us through. No, but you may be thinking right now that I'm good, but stress isn't. It's called a silent killer for a reason. Things are happening in your body they don't even understand. And so managing your stress differently is important, no matter whether you're acknowledging that there's physical things happening or there's not. All of us probably would acknowledge, hey, I've got some stress. Now, here's a really big question we have been considering, and we've been interviewing. If you've been following this podcast already, you've already met some great leaders who are figuring this out, and we're learning from them how it's possible to actually work a job that's hard, whatever your job is, how it's possible to be in leadership and carry a weight of leadership, whatever you're leading, especially if you're a pastor and you carry a
spiritual
so
weight
much
on
top of all of that.
administrative weight. Yeah.
That there is a way to work and rest at the same time. And actually Jesus it's I know
I know
she's
what
gonna-
you're thinking.
I know what you're thinking. She knows me so well because we love Seinfeld, and there's an episode where George Costanza has like a desk like this, and he actually builds a little cubbyhole underneath it where he rests at
He
work.
wants to sleep at work. So
Anyway, I've mentioned it before because I think it's hysterical, but not that I don't mean like
A loaf at work.
I don't mean like chilling
corners and get
having
out
a
of
couch
work
in
early.
your office.
Yeah.
I'm talking about how you actually rest,
Your spirit.
be at rest
Yeah.
while you're working. And one of our favorite passages now is a story of Jesus and really how he said it.
Okay, so Matthew 11:28-30, Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." What we're talking about today is helping all of us find rest for our souls, whereas typically I think we focus on finding rest for our bodies. We need a vacation, we need a day off, we need a spa day, we need a golf day, we need a shopping day.
And those all fit in the right places. And we just want to talk a
That's
little bit about breaking this
important,
down. What is Jesus actually saying? How can I rest, be at rest, while I'm working? So here are 3 laws, okay, for being at rest at work. The first law is the law of authenticity. The law of authenticity. Now, there's some context to this passage too, right?
Yeah, so Jesus is teaching his disciples, and the previous chapter, he gives them really a whole long list for why they would not want to be disciples. Like he spells out, people are going to hate you, brother against brother, father against child, you're going to be persecuted, shake the dust off your feet when you leave a town if they don't accept your message. It's like a whole bunch of really hard stuff. So you would think, listen, this is right out of the gates. Like, why are they signing up for this when he's telling them this? And he says, if you love your father and mother more than me, you're not worthy of me, that kind of thing. And John the Baptist is in prison, and his disciples are you really the Messiah? Because, we're really concerned because our leader's about to be killed. And Jesus is very clear that following me, whether it's professional ministry or just a Christian, being a Christ follower, following me is going to be hard. And then he says, but come to me because my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
Yeah, and I think I love how Jesus is always putting the fine print in big, large font.
It's no joke. It's no secret.
Right up front.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how the devil in your life always is trying to hide the fine print?
Yeah.
Like, come to me. This is going to find you. You're going to love this. This
yeah.
is going to be so great.
This is easier.
You need this. You need that. And doesn't tell you the fine print of how destructive that can be. And we find ways to medicate ourselves. We find ways to numb ourselves. We find ways to distract ourselves, but we don't read the fine print. Jesus is right up front saying, this is going to be hard.
This is going to be hard, but there's a way to do it right. And this is the part that I think we skip over. So
the law of
Authenticity.
is all about no longer hiding, no longer trying to keep perceptions and keep everyone happy. And we all know ministry is hard, but You know, when John the Baptist, reference that you just made, said, "Are you the Messiah, or is there another?" He was in prison, and he was about to die, and so I think John the Baptist had a crisis of faith for a moment and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, what's happening here, Jesus? I'm in prison. You're out there preaching. What's going on?"
Yeah, he knew Jesus was the Messiah. That was the whole point
Yeah,
of his life.
exactly.
But you can still have, and we had the same crisis of faith after the heart attack. I said to Shane in the hospital, "Can we be done? Like, this isn't worth it. This whole giving our entire lives to ministry so that it can kill you, I'm out. Like, this is not what I signed up for. Can
Yeah.
we be done?" And I think this is the same kind of moment that John and his followers were having. Like, we knew you were coming to make our lives better, and our lives are actually worse. So what's up with that?
Yeah, and I love the message that Jesus sends back and says, "Hey, tell him the lame walk, the blind see. Tell him everything he already knows." And isn't that what we need to hear sometimes? God just needs to remind us who he is.
And what he's doing.
And then he
Yeah.
needs to and then he reminds John not just who he is and what he's doing and the work he's doing, but he reminds John that, hey, blessed are those who don't fall out on account of me.
Who believe in spite of the difficulty. And that's the crux of faith, right? Like, everybody can believe in Jesus when life is good, but when life is hard, that's when his glory really is revealed, because it shows whether or not our faith is true. And so I think this is why he can say, "Come to me if you're burdened, and I will give you rest," because that's what shows people who he is.
Yeah, so how do we admit and not try to hide? We authentically saying, "Hey, I am burdened. I've got some heavy burdens. How do I do that?" Now, I know we can do that in private, and we have some friends that we complain to, but this is different. I think we need to do this with ourselves. And this is one of the things my counselor taught me that I love so much. He talked to me how stress is actually my ally. And here's how he taught it to me. He's a Navy guy, and he spent a lot of time on ships. And on ships, they have huge ropes that are like as big as your head that hold tons, thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of pounds. And if one of those ropes breaks and you step over that rope at that same time, it splits you in half. You don't live to tell that story. So this is the rule in the Navy. If you know this, if you're a Navy person, never step over a rope. Always step on a rope, because if you step on a rope and it breaks, it throws you in the air. You've broken a collarbone, you've broken some bones, but you live to tell that story. So stress is actually like that rope. Don't ignore it. Don't step over it like it's not there. Don't keep medicating it, numbing it, watching Netflix till you're finally numb and you can finally fall asleep is my favorite action. Just recognize that you've got some stress in your life. And if you recognize, hey, I've got some physical things going on, mental things going on, emotional things going on, maybe there's some stress that's causing that. Recognize it and actually address it. That's stepping on the rope.
Yeah, stress and tension is not necessarily bad. It's proof that there are forces at work. It's whether or not we ignore it. And so I think this phrase, "I will give you rest," is important in this passage, because rest is one of those words that we, I don't know, when I think of we're going to rest, it means we're going to lie down. We're going to take a nap. We are out. I'm checking out. I'm going on vacation. I need some rest. But the word in Greek actually has more the idea of restoration, which is a different kind of word. Restoration means returning something to its original state, reconstruction, renewal, reestablishment, a restitution. It's an active idea, whereas rest is a static or passive idea. And God wants to give us, he wants to continually be transforming us into our original state, which was the garden, right?
Yeah, love that.
Adam had a job to do. He had to take care of the garden, name the animals. He had work to do. Right from the get-go, God gave him work.
So God gave Adam chores. Is that what you're saying?
He had chores. I don't know what Eve
I hope
had
he
to
didn't
do.
make it on a list because I hate lists.
You know, Eve doesn't have to do anything in the garden. That's very interesting. No, I guess they tended it
Except
together.
not eat the apple.
Yeah. Well, they both
Just
ate
kidding.
the apple.
We
but
don't know
anyway,
it was an apple. It was fruit.
Yeah, fruit. Anyway, so this idea that restoration is in accordance with our work. It's not we work and then we rest. We go, we take a sabbatical, which is necessary sometimes, or we take a vacation, or we do the whatever to restore ourselves. Jesus is saying that they're happening at the same time.
And he must not be talking about the rest, just that vacation thing. I mean, I loved one of our guests, Scott Wilson, came on here and talked about.
Yeah, we had a whole thing just about sabbaticals.
Just such a great episode. Go check out that episode with Scott Wilson. He talks about the difference between vacation and sabbatical, between rest and restoration. And I think if we don't understand that we are weary, that we need to come to Jesus, we end up going other places to figure this out, whether it's a vacation or some other kind of fix. And Jesus is saying, come to me, all you are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. When Jesus is the source of your rest, it's a different kind of rest, that restoration that Sue's talking about.
Do we want to talk about how to live without anxiety?
No, we don't. We should let them live with anxiety.
I meant now at this moment.
Yes, of
okay,
course.
A couple free pieces of advice here. How to live without anxiety. Stress itself is a warning sign. Anxiety is the result of not dealing with it. Okay? Like anger is a warning sign. Action would be the result, a positive result of that. Well, I guess you could have a negative result if you go ballistic on somebody. But okay, so how to live without anxiety, unresolved stress, is to be calm, to do the detox work for your brain. There's a lot of good material out there about transformation of your mind. Switch on your brain by Caroline Leaf. Dr. Caroline Leaf is great.
Good. Yeah.
Have fun. Don't make excuses for your time off. I think that's one of the problems in ministries. We feel like we have to hide when we're taking time off.
Well, not just take time off, but maybe pick some things to take some time off that are causing stress. Like get rid of social media out of your evening routine.
Yeah, that's the next one. Be off.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Be off social media. Have fun is the idea that you plan fun. We just got back from a trip from Alaska, and we had so much fun hiking and bike riding and just
And Mark Zweifel is
playing.
going to be a guest on the podcast coming up soon.
Oh, good. Did he say yes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So playtime without making excuses for it or hiding it.
Yeah, we went and did ministry for a long time, and then we took a few days of just rest and having a blast.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
It was great. Just being silly. We have some silly pictures. Our kids even laughed, though, so it wasn't too... sometimes we're silly and they think we're weird. They thought we were actually pretty cool. Okay, be real. Stop flexing and adapting to what people's expectations. We're going to get into that in a minute. Be vulnerable. Get help. This is probably the most important one, is having a counselor. I know we say this a lot. Having a place to detox with a professional so that I'm not dumping on him. He's not dumping to me. We can't be each other's counselors and stay healthy.
This is huge.
It is huge.
Right now. If you're not seeing a counselor, man, I think you're missing something huge. It's the most important appointment I have, other than my family, other than the things in my life. It's one of the most important personal things that I could do, and I think I do it for my marriage and for my family, so that I don't come home and lean on you.
We're always healthier when we're seeing counselors, because I don't feel the need to dump more weight. I mean, we process what's happening to each of us.
And I think
we don't talk about it, but sometimes we just have to vomit up some of the yuck, and it's better if we're not doing that on each other. And we can't do it like in church life or in business life. You can't do it to the people that are under you or that you're influencing you.
And talk a little bit about how it changes the conversation with yourself. I love how you talk about this. You change the conversation you're having with yourself. Everyone's having a conversation right now in your mind a million times over again. You're saying things to yourself.
Right. We believe the spiral thinking that happens in our brain, but when we actually start verbalizing it with someone who's objective rather than a close friend who's going to take your side, when you process verbally, I start hearing the poison that's coming out of my lips. And then I'm like, you know what? No. God is good. He does good. This is going to be fine. I'm sure there's another side to this story. It helps reorient you. I just want to throw in real quick, your body is always trying to tell you something. So when you've got physical problems, for all means, get them checked out by a doctor, but consider that aches and pains and stiffness and inflammation and mind glitches like I'm having right now could be stress related because your body is always speaking to you. So a book that was on my reading list forever that I finally read this summer, and now I'm going to have to read it regularly, is The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. Wow. Talks about the effects of trauma and avoidance of dealing with issues. It's fantastic. He's an industry's, well, he's a psychologist who's at the head of the industry. Everybody knows him. But anyway, his book is really good. And also The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, John Mark Comer. We've read that after the heart attack.
That's going to be a book I read every single year. I love that book.
Very practical,
so
but
great.
Also insightful, and just makes you reconsider things that we've talked about, that you talk about all the time. Oh, we need to reduce this, or we need to eliminate this, or we need to do this. And he really dissects the sinful nature of this hurried life that we live in America. It's a profound spiritual attack against not just our ministry, but our personal lives. And so those are two good book recommendations.
Wow, there's so much we want to share with you, and there's no way we can do it in just one episode.
So we're going to continue Rest at Work in our next episode. So please tune back in, and you can find us by subscribing to YouTube or texting stress to the number that's on the screen, and it's 833-204-2158. We'll send you resources that are going along with what we're talking about so you can do some self-assessment.
Yeah, it'll prompt you a few times. We got your info, and then hopefully we can go along together. So join us next time for part 2 on Stress Test.